to Unravel with Natly Denise.
Good evening, muchachos y muchachas. How are you guys doing? Thank you for tuning in with Nightly with Natly, or if you're tuning in the morning, which I see that some of you guys do tune in around that time. Welcome. Good morning. All right. Today, man, I was so busy. I'm just like, I'm like kind of catching my breath. I'm like, okay, sit down, just sit down. And I was just kind of having like a little silent moment. I was like, all right, catch your breath. Everything's okay. You're here. Everything's good. All right. Sometimes I have to talk to myself and just like kind of coax myself down, you know? What up, guys? How are you? Where are you guys listening from? I see New Mexico, Santa Fe. What up? What up? What up? Good evening. So let's go ahead and jump into some of these headlines. So today, I actually did a story on this one on FBI. They're raiding the Project Veritas related reporters or journalists. And the whole shindig was basically about them being the FBI suspecting that Project Veritas had actually stolen the diary of Ashley Biden, who is the daughter of Resident Biden, Joe Biden. If you guys remember last year, hey, what's up? What's up? If you guys remember last year, there was a big like headline push in regards to Hunter Biden. Like everything just kind of seemed like everything all at once. Hunter Biden's laptop was being the prominent piece of news because Giuliani had just like, you know, unleashed the bear. And I think in partnership with like some, I don't know, it was like some weird Chinese like alter media, social media place where all these videos were getting released. And then, you know, the Daily Beast. Who was it? The Daily Mail. Actually, the Daily Mail. They actually obtained a copy of the hard drive and they forensically got it examined and confirmed that it actually was Hunter Biden's laptop. So at least we know that. But now this has resurfaced because around that time, this also came to light about Ashley Biden's diary. And in her diary, there was some pretty dark stuff. In particular, some possible, let me just reiterate, possible. So this is not, you know, me saying it for fact, possible child abuse and, yeah, just a lot of dark things. If you guys go to nationalfile.com, you'll be able to find that article. And it's right now because this story is resurfacing. They put it like at the main page. And I think they're the ones who published the whole 112 page diary in its whole. So anyway, there was a raid today, and this happened at the New York apartments linked to Project Veritas journalists. And the whole reason why they raided their apartment, or this apartment in particular, was because they suspected that Project Veritas or their constituents, their, you know, employees, that they had actually stolen the diary. Now, James O'Keefe, and I did make a video on this, James O'Keefe did come out and rebut those claims and basically said, look, we couldn't prove the authenticity, so we decided not to go down that route and publish the diary because at Project Veritas, and I'm speaking in third person as if I'm James O'Keefe, but James O'Keefe said that, you know, at Project Veritas, they highly value journalism and the integrity of investigative journalism. If there's something that they cannot 100% confirm, they typically don't, you know, go through with that, down that route. So anyway, through that, they raided this apartment, and, you know, this does seem a bit reminiscent of the whole Rudy Giuliani raid. And there was not a lot of basis. There was not a lot explained. They left the Hunter Biden laptop. So, you know, you can kind of determine how biased or what mindset that the FBI has on this entire thing. But one thing that got brought up to my attention that I didn't really think about was that the FBI actually confirmed in a way that this was a legitimate diary for them, actually going through the motion of raiding this apartment. So here we go. This is from the same publication that actually released the diary. It says, bombshell: New York Times and FBI confirmed the legitimacy of Ashley Biden diary published by National File. Let me just step back and just explain to you a little bit. So I mentioned this in my video earlier that it's a big question why Ashley Biden never came forward to rebut or to give a statement about this whole ordeal with her diary and, with the legitimacy of these stories or what. She just never came out and she never rebutted the claims. And so, that just really had me questioning, like, why was there never a statement? And also, just the avoidance of Hunter Biden's laptop when they raided Giuliani's apartment or, wherever it was, his home in New York. That also gives off a lot. Now, in this story, because the New York Times, they reported on this, I'm going to say in the due process of an investigation by this magnitude, they kind of jumped the gun and they reported on information where it's like, how did you know that there was a raid happening? Because it was happening in secret. So that's the big question too. It's like, how did you know? Because they reached out to Project Veritas for comment that these raids were actually occurring when this was supposed to be a secret investigation. So that kind of also reveals that there was some sort of leak in the, investigation somehow. So they brought this point up. That's really, really an important one. And it's something I didn't think about earlier. It says, New York Times FBI confirmed the legitimacy of Ashley Biden's diary published by National File. Last year, National File published the entirety of Ashley Biden's diary, in which she revealed that she had inappropriate showers with her 𝘱𝘂. Yeah, with the resident. Today, the diary has been confirmed as real. Entries in the diary include the author revealing she believed she was sexually molested as a child and shared probably not appropriate showers with her 𝘱𝘂. Some that detail the author's struggle with drug abuse and the author's crumbling marriage with multiple affairs, along with entries showing the family's fears of a potential scandal due to her brother's new home, and those that show a deep resentment for her father due to his money control and emotional manipulation. While the vast majority of the media ignored the bombshell revelations, perhaps dismissing their verifiability, the New York Times on Friday reported that the FBI had engaged in 2 raids on addresses as part of an investigation into now Ashley Biden's diary that was obtained. So this is just right here what you're seeing here. National File, they have watermarked this portion of the diary, obviously because they obtained it somehow, but they make a really great point. Despite naming both National File's reporter Patrick Howley and the legal name of the company that owns National File, the article does not name National File at all, nor does the article discuss anything that was contained within the diary itself. Similarly, mainstream journalists, when tweeting about the New York Times article, also failed to mention National File or any of the bombshells themselves. And this is true because even from the article that I read out in my earlier video, not even the Daily Mail, not even them, did they mention the National File. And I just went off of memory knowing that I remember seeing this story last year. I was like, I swear it was one publication. It was literally one news outlet that actually published this article out. And I remember it was National File. And I was like, oh, let me go there because they pretty much feature this article a lot. Even a year later, they'll feature it like on their main page. This is a tweet. And this is from a New York Times, I believe, journalist. New FBI executed search warrants at locations tied to people who worked with Project Veritas as part of the Southern District of New York investigation into a diary stolen from Biden's daughter, Ashley, was publicly disclosed days before the 2020 election. She was burglarized in 2020. So This is what I have to say about it. There obviously is some sort of communication, it seems, in my opinion, it seems that there's some sort of communication going on within the secret investigations of the FBI and these mainstream news publications such as the New York Times. Because what would be the basis of FBI raiding these places? Well, the basis we now know is Ashley Biden's diary, that it was stolen. So they confirm the legitimacy of this diary being real. Now, this also, it's curious why they would not want people to go to the National File to go read this story or read this article or even see this diary for themselves, because they posted 112 pages of it. So that is actually very curious that they didn't mention the National File at all. So Sam Stein reported, Bill Barr opened an investigation into the theft of Ashley Biden's diary right before the 2020 election. Pages were published online with little notice. Now the feds are looking into potential ties. Excuse me. Yawn. Sorry. Human. Now the feds are looking into the potential ties into Project Veritas. So the FBI carried out the search warrant as New York as part of Justice Department investigation into the pages of Ashley Biden's journal, coming to be published by the right-wing website. So this is also another question that comes to my mind right now is, if this investigation of a stolen diary was launched by the very Trump administration, William Barr himself, I wonder if this was sort of a plant investigation to confirm the legitimacy of the diary. Are you guys following me here? Like, I wonder if they knew, like, in the back of their minds, like, yeah, this is the real deal. This is her diary. And then somehow they planted this investigation so that way they could discover the legitimacy and then, go out in public light. I don't know. It just makes me wonder. The article claims that the federal investigators are comprised of FBI agents and federal prosecutors in Manhattan who work on public corruption matters on behalf of the SDNY, Southern District of New York. Investigation was seemingly opened by William Barr, the then Attorney General, after the Biden family representative allegedly reported in October of 2020 that the diary, along with several of Ashley Biden's personal items, they'd been stolen in a burglary. This is contrary to the information provided by National File by Project Veritas whistleblower, who explained that the diary was left at an address where Joe Biden's daughter used to stay. According to the article, the FBI would not comment on the investigation, saying only agents that had performed law enforcement activity related to the ongoing investigation at 2 locations. In a video posted on social media, James O'Keefe, he go watch my video if you do want to see his statement, but, he did rebut this and he did, bring that to light that, hey, if this was supposed to be a secret investigation because his reporters or his former reporters / journalists were actually raided in secret, if this is supposed to be some high level investigation, then how in the world did New York Times come out with this story before the investigation was ever complete or, ever wrapped up? So that's just some questions to, I don't know, just ponder about. It's just like, it's all like a web of things, but it just, like this whole thing just makes me wonder, like, even with Hunter Biden's laptop, like, why would he just willingly surrender his laptop full of all that content, knowing that all that content's there, knowing that there are some discoverable evidence, media, content, whatever you want to call it, information, knowing that it's all there? Like, why would he just send it to a repair shop? It's just mind-boggling to me. And then, just bringing up the first thought that I had was, if Ashley Biden, if this is her laptop or her diary rather, or wasn't her diary, why didn't she make a statement about it last year when this news popped off? So these are just some questions that I think you guys should ponder. So let me go see, let me take a pause here and go look at the chat. I see you, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Colorado, Montana, San Diego, California, Colorado. What up, Addy Ads? What's going on? Hey, Natly, good day, chat. Blessings. Hey, girl. What up? What up, everybody? I hope you guys are doing well. Oh, man. Guys, today, I can't lie. Today, I am tired. You know what I need to stop doing? Stop going to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning. And there's just so much to do. Like, I wish there was so much more time in the day to do everything, you know? I just, like, I find myself so much more active at night. But yeah, I need to stop going to sleep at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I just, like, I can't shut my brain off. Like, and I hate taking melatonin to, like, help me go to sleep as a sleep aid because it makes me groggy in the morning and I don't like that feeling. So I don't know. I just need to really, like, I need to go to sleep earlier. I think that's what I need to do. Get my energy back up. My energy's still there, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So anyway, let's pivot to the next story here. So you guys know that I have been covering this story from Houston, and this has been a very important issue to me because, you know, number one, you know, the justice system and the entire system for children, you know, in alternative care. I feel like a sneeze is coming on. Come on, sneeze. Hurry up. Hurry up. Hurry up. Hurry up. Excuse me. Bless me. Sorry, I felt it. I was like, oh, it's there. It's coming up. It's coming up. And it went. All right. So, again, I've been covering this story about the Houston House of Horrors. And I was saying that it's important to me because, you know, you guys know my fight. You know, guys know what I'm passionate about in this fight with, you know, child exploitation, human exploitation. And, you know, it really does. It's a cycle of a failed home care. It's a failed, broken system for kids and their upbringing. You know, unfortunately, when kids who don't have any control of their livelihoods or any control of their familial systems, you know, they get thrown into these situations where it's foster care, CPS, and they're so broken and it's so unaccounted for. And, you know, especially the CPS system, you know, if they're depending on these judges, which in this case, you know, I'll say that there's a particular Houston judge that actually presided over the 𝘿𝘬 case. If you guys remember 𝘿𝘬, baby 𝘿𝘬 from Houston, she was missing for, I believe, like at least a couple weeks. And they actually found her remains, I believe in a field, or it was somewhere. I can't pretend that I know, but they found her remains. And so, meaning that she was killed and she had a lot of injuries to her. And, you know, that really, it disturbs me. It disturbs my heart that you have so many callous, like, local officials that will do things like seal records for CPS, you know, related cases. In this case, this is what happened with the kids. The CPS took custody of the kids after, you know, this whole ordeal. This is a horrible story, by the way, and I will recap what it is. But basically, the mother, her boyfriend were living 15 minutes down the road, rented another apartment for their children, and they expected basically the 15-year-old to care for them. That's essentially the story. They found the 15-year-old couldn't take it anymore. She called 911. I believe it's a she or he, the 15-year-old. Just say the 15-year-old. Called 911, couldn't take it anymore, sent a text message to the mom, hey, mom, can't take this anymore. And once the police arrived, they discovered the remains of an 8-year-old boy. He was so decayed, he was skeletal remains, and the remains actually decayed in front of his siblings. That's how horrible this story is. So that's why I'm keeping track of this story, because it's very important to me. So, hey, what's up, Rocky? Thank you so much for adminning and modding for me today. Houston House of Horrors, coming from the Daily Mail. Mom has a bond raised to $1.5 million. As it's revealed, she was getting $2,000 a month towards childcare, while her 3 sons lived alone in a roach-infested apartment with their 8-year-old brother's corpse. So, again, I have no words, you know, outside of what's going to be reported here. But I reported on this, I think, 2 times on my main channel, that, you know, the system failed these kids. The mom, the boyfriend, monsters. but the system failed these kids as well. A Texas judge on Friday raised the total bond amount of the mother in Houston House of Horrors case in $1.5 million after prosecutors revealed in court that she had been receiving a $2,000 a month to care for her children, including her 8-year-old son, who is beaten to death and left to rot in an apartment with his brothers. Gloria Williams, 35 years old, previously had her bond set at $900,000, which to me is still low for what they did. Which, by the way, I didn't mention that the mother and her boyfriend, upon the discovery of the children in this apartment, they were actually let go. Like, law enforcement, I don't know if they questioned them or didn't question them enough. They didn't have enough juice besides the fact that that her son was rotting in an apartment to detain that. Like, that to me was mind-blowing. So they let them go with no charge initially. That just completely is another thing. But anyway, her bond was set at $900,000 for the infant, and the amount was insufficient for the charges against the mom of 6, including the injury to a child by omission and tampering with evidence. On Friday, the judge increased Williams' bond amount stemming from jury to a child count from $350,000 to $1 million, with the new total being $1,550,000. Williams' defense attorney previously requested that her original bond be lowered, arguing that $900,000 is not a reasonable amount. And this is the mom here standing in court. I'm satisfied, Prosecutor Andrea Beal told KPRC or of KPRC, that's actually a local news station here in Houston, of the higher bond amount. We can't seek no bond in this case per the Texas Constitution, and I believe the judge did take into consideration of all factors in community safety. Williams' boyfriend, Brian Coulter, 31, is charged with the felony murder of allegedly punching and kicking her autistic 8-year-old Kendrick Lee to death, then leaving his body to rot in the Houston apartment alongside his brothers, aged 15. Okay, so the 15-year-old is a male. I apologize. So the brothers, aged 15, 10, and 7 for nearly a year. His bond stands at $1 million. Could you guys imagine? Could you imagine? I mean, still, this is just it's so disturbing. Like, our judges in Houston, like, I'm just so disturbed at the callousness. They set the bond at $1 million. He literally killed an 8-year-old boy. Like, I'm just so disturbed by that. I in my opinion, the bond should have been set way higher. And I can't, I'm very righteously angry about this. During Friday's hearing, prosecutors revealed new information about the disturbing case, including that Williams received payments, $2,000 a month. According to prosecutors, she continued to receive financial assistance even after Kendrick's death in November of 2020, which she had not reported to the authorities. The child's skeletal remains were found inside the Houston apartment on October 24th after Williams' 15-year-old son alerted the police, leading to her and Coulter's arrests. The money that Williams was receiving allowed her to pay rent on 2 apartments, prosecutors said. And I did like think about that. I'm like, I wonder how she could afford paying 2 apartments. And really what she probably did was use that money to pay rent on the second apartment where she left her kids by themselves to fend for themselves, and probably pocketed a few hundred after rent. And I mean, it's the money. Okay, let me continue. The money that Williams was receiving allowed her to pay rent for 2 apartments. And she actually, it looks to be that she actually has more kids than, because I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids. A search for the couple's apartment revealed that it was fully furnished, and as opposed to the unit in the City Park 2 complex where her children were, 15 minutes away, it was bare. There was no furniture, and it was crawling with cockroaches. And now I also have some criticism for the, apartment complex maintenance front desk. I mean, there were neighbors that were complaining about the foul odor of the decay. and these maintenance people never went to go check. They never did inspections, nothing. And if nobody answered, the call, like if they called the mom, hey, getting complaints from the neighbors, would that not trigger you to maybe call the authorities? I mean, there's just so many questions. The children alleged that they were locked in a bedroom with Kendrick's decomposing remains while Coulter and Williams still lived with them. Williams allegedly had groceries delivered to the apartment once a month and paid rent on the apartment to prevent Kendrick's body from being discovered. During a jailhouse interview with KHOU 11 last week, Williams said she was sorry but denied knowing that Kendrick was dead, even though, according to a probable cause statement that was previously read in court, the mother allegedly admitted to investigators that she was aware that the child had died, but she was afraid to report it to police. And I did read that statement out. Kendrick's body was left to rot under a blue blanket in a bug-infested bedroom in full view of his brothers for nearly a year, while Williams and Coulter moved to another apartment, leaving the children to fend for themselves, according to the law enforcement. When asked why she left her sons, one of whom was seriously injured after being allegedly punched in the face by Coulter, the boyfriend who killed her 8-year-old son, Williams replied, "I checked on them every 2 weeks." The baby that he punched, this child that he punched, that survived all this, actually had a broken jaw upon the police's discovery of the children. The children were rescued by sheriff's deputies on Sunday after Williams' 15-year-old son called 911. All of them were malnourished. The grandmother, which is a whole other rant, but I'm going to try to keep within my headspace here. The grandmother regretted not adopting the 8-year-old little boy who was killed. And that really concerns me because there is some sort of very small indicator, and I can't confirm this, and I don't know this to be true, and I don't know this to be fact, so I've got to precaution myself here. I'm not saying that this is true, but there's some underlying knowledge I would think that the grandmother had about her grandson, if she even contemplated or considered adopting him in the first place. So they were afraid to report it to police because of their fear of going to jail, which now they get to go to jail, The children claim Coulter struck the 8-year-old with closed fists and kicked him in the face, feet, back, testicles, and buttocks. Williams' 7-year-old son told deputies Coulter continued kicking Kendrick, who was lying on the floor and not moving, while staring at the younger brother who was in the room. This is some new details that are surfacing here. I mean, and I want to read everything to you guys because you guys ought to be disturbed by your heart. Your hearts need. Listen to me. Listen. Our hearts need to be disturbed, like righteously disturbed, right? Like in like, you guys know that I'm a big Bible, reading, believing person. In the word, it says that there's righteous anger. Like, anger is not a sin. There is righteous anger. And the reason why there is righteous anger is because some of this anger should provoke us to act to better our environments, to better our livelihoods or the livelihoods of others, those that might need rescue. And this righteously disturbs my heart, as it should to you. So this is why I'm going to continue reading the very graphic details of this baby getting killed, because we need to better our societies. We need to be more accountable for our communities, and we need to be more assiduous for children that have no fight or no voice in the system. And this completely falls on us as a community, wherever you are. So I'm going to repeat that. The children claim Coulter struck the 8-year-old with closed fists and kicked him in the face, feet, back, testicles, and buttocks. William's 7-year-old son told deputies Coulter continued kicking Kendrick, who was lying on the floor and not moving while staring at the younger brother who was in the room. After Kendrick's eyes turned black and he stopped blinking, Coulter covered him with a blue blanket, the prosecutor stated. When Williams entered the room to check on her son and saw that he was dead, she began crying and fighting with Coulter. Her 15-year-old son told investigators he believed his mother would call the police on Coulter, but she never did. She moved out of the apartment, leaving her surviving children with her brother's rotting corpse and without any adult supervision. Williams' 10-year-old son told investigators that when Williams came by the apartment at a later date and lifted the blanket off Kendrick, she found that his body, feet, and teeth had turned into a skeleton and that his hair was off. His decomposing corpse was said to have been covered in cockroaches. So these children, I mean, and they got taken by CPS. And the CPS system, even, I know that there's some good people in CPS. I think that at a point of your career, in whatever you do, you get so second-handed in what you do that sometimes you do develop this natural callousness for, your job. And unfortunately in CPS, sometimes this does happen, but I do believe that there are people with good hearts that continuously get disturbed by these types of details. But imagine also that there is a faltered system in the CPS, agency, and that some of these kids do not end up, most of these kids, in fact, they don't end up in good situations because then they get placed in the foster care system. And we all know how that's fractured and how these kids get recycled on the streets, either to get exploited in labor trade, pushing drugs, or, the sex trade in being exploited. So I say that because imagine seeing this horror and then getting placed in that system. And I hope to God that they are taking care of these kids. I mean, I hope to God that there's somebody within the system or process that sees this situation and they really give them the overnourishment that they need, because this is worse than a horror film. Could you imagine children with their sibling decaying right in front of them with the foul odor, and who knows, I don't even know, but it's already what seems to be a cockroach infested complex, and I've lived in one in my earlier years, in my younger years. In my college years, I lived in one of these apartments in Houston that was just so disgusting, and you really couldn't control the pest problem. Thank God I'm out of that situation. Jeez, I just remember. But I know what it's like to live in that type of environment where it's like you can't really control the pests, and the maintenance, they do think that they're doing like some sort of pest control, but really it's not enough. But imagine that this complex is that bad where it's infested with cockroaches. They don't do inspections according to, this report or to a previous report. The roaches are there to just rummage around the area, around the children. And not only that, but now you have a decaying corpse in which they can feed on and decompose themselves. Could you imagine the living conditions of these children? I have to reiterate that this is disturbing and this is graphic, but this is happening not just in, Gabriel's case in Los Angeles or in Kendrick's case in Houston. This is probably happening a lot more often than we can perceive. So the 10-year-old also claimed that Coulter would beat him as well, hitting him on the face, stomach, buttocks, and legs, and broke his jaw 3 weeks ago. When police arrived at the apartment on Sunday, they found the child was with a swollen jaw. At the hospital the following day, the boy said that his mother was aware of the injury but did not seek or obtain medical aid for him, the prosecutor said. Authorities said the 10-year-old will require surgery to treat his facial fracture. When questioned by detectives, Williams claimed that when she entered the bedroom around Thanksgiving of 2020 and found Coulter beating her son Kendrick, she stopped the attack. This is the pair. This is the couple. After discovering the next day Kendrick had died, Williams claimed that she confronted her boyfriend, who stated he was sorry and that he lost it, and punched him and continued punching him until he went to sleep. Williams allegedly told investigators that she knew her son was dead a year ago, but she did not go to the police because Coulter had told her not to, and also because she was afraid that her children would be taken away. I mean, it would have been a better situation anyway than being punched to death. It says here in this last one right here, investigators say the mother never made the call, and the oldest surviving son, the 15-year-old, finally overcame his absolute fear and called authorities on Sunday. I mean, I am so sorry that I have to bring some of these dark stories up to you guys, but this is the news and this is what's happening in our world. And rather than gaslight, the masses on what we should fear, what the media and the establishment thinks that we should fear, there are actual dark things happening in our dark world, and this is not being reported. This is not being talked about, and that's my duty. That's my duty, to report this type of stuff. I'm going to pivot. I was going to read another story. I think it's inappropriate to pivot to a more, gleeful story. So I'm going to pivot to this next story. And this is more pertaining, and I will pivot to some other pieces that I have in line with you guys. But, I know that was a doozy to listen to. But that's the real world that we're covering up. That's the real world that we're not talking about. And, if it's any sort of leverage or power that I have to talk about it, then I will. So next story coming from the National File. January 6th, political prisoner Nathan DeGrave's horrifying letter from DC jail where patriots are tortured. So this is a J6 protester who has been, in my opinion, wrongfully detained for so long. From what I know, there hasn't been any trial. I think that this should go to the state, but this has been given its course of a federal offense. Apparently, it says that he's writing up a letter. J6 political prisoner Nathan DeGrave has released a letter from a DC jail through attorneys Brad Geyer, in which DeGrave details the horror and physical and mental torture that American patriots suffer in lockup. The tyrannical government is clearly trying to make an example of the patriotic protesters, this article says. I actually want to read here. The vile filth of what has become our daily life is being illegally hidden from the members of our own Congress. So let me tell you about what me and many other J6ers have been experiencing at DC's Gitmo. It is my hope that with media exposure and the awareness of American public that something may be done and this never happens to anyone ever again. Our conditions for the first 120 days in DC's Gitmo, J6ers experienced daily lockdowns for 23 to 24 hours before being allowed to leave our small 120 square foot cell. I mean, if that's not enough to make you go crazy, I don't know what is. The physical and mental anguish that results from this kind of severe isolation has caused many people to go on a rapid mental decline. As a result, a large percentage of us are heavily medicated with anti-anxiety and antidepressant drugs, which helps to cope with the psychological and mental abuse we endure. Many times, the little rec we do receive is stripped away if our cell isn't up to standards of the guard on duty. This changes from day to day. J6ers have lost, by the way, if you don't know what a J6er, it means January 6th January 6th protester. Jan 6ers have lost rec time out of cell activity anytime news interviews about jail are aired on TV. people speak up about our conditions or rallies are held in our name, we'll probably have a lockdown upon the publishing of this letter. So I've already warned those to know in advance. Masks are weaponized and used against us, even though we never leave the facility. Officers have walked in with the sole intention of needing to write a 20 to 30 disciplinary reports against 𝘱𝘂, which adversely affects our chances of release and causes loss of privileges, phone time, and commissary. Masks need to be covering both the nose and the mouth at all times, or we are threatened and locked down in our cells. 𝘱6ers are always respectful to the employees around us, but COs maintain the need to invent reasons for discipline. Privileged legal documents have been confiscated and gone missing from various cells, and highly sensitive discovery, video evidence under attorney-client privilege, is watched by employees during our legal calls. Jordan Mink, for example, had the discovery taken at ERT officers on August 23rd despite the objection of his attorney. They handcuffed him, searched his room, then proceeded to take all video evidence in his possession. Additionally, legal visits take 2 to 3 weeks or more to be scheduled, leaving little time to discuss our defense and prepare for trial. The extreme medical neglect in this facility has caused a variety of adverse illnesses and diseases. Some show signs of scurvy, and some even have COVID-like symptoms, but medical personnel refuse to treat it. Christopher Worrell, for example, an inmate with cancer who also broke his hand in prison and requires surgery, both have completely ignored. Federal Judge Royce Lamberth got to the point where on October 12th, he filed a contempt for court charges against the warden of the DC DOC, claiming that Worrell's civil rights have been violated and demanding the U.S. Attorney General inquire further about this, his and other possible violations. Another inmate, Peter Stager, waited for months to receive CPAP breathing machine, which has needed an MRI since spring, which has also been ignored by staff. The harsh, unlivable conditions in our unit has caused health hazards that defy Department of Health regulations, and on at least 5 occasions, raw sewage has overflowed in our unit, causing human fecal matter to flood the floors and rooms. That's also in addition to the mold on cell walls, as well as rusty pipes and dirty water that flows from these sinks. White rags turn brown when exposed to the water from our faucets. We are undergoing severe nutritional deficiencies and starvation. For breakfast this morning, I received a tray of flavorless paste, 2 slices of bread, and a slice of bologna. Lunches usually consist of rice and beans, but we'll get cold chicken and beef patties if we're lucky. For dinner, we are sometimes fed a diet of cheese and sandwiches and bologna and cheese 4 to 5 times per week. Without commissary, people like myself are forced to starve. I suffer from headaches, nausea, and almost regular basis from the malnutrition and constant hunger I am subjected to. I have lost almost 15 pounds since I've been detained. Our rights and personal hygiene are totally neglected. Razors are prohibited, and inmates are forced to either go unshaved and grow long beards or use a razor-free cream, and it burns and it irritates the skin. But many other jails are allowed to use razors without incident. Haircuts are also prohibited from unpoked inmates. For me, it's nearly 9 months. I look virtually unrecognizable in person. I'm in the condition I'm in. I fear even my family would not recognize me. Contact with the outside world, from legal visits to seeing loved ones, is highly restricted after in-person, legal or otherwise. We are forced to undergo humiliating strip searches despite all visitors being thoroughly checked for contraband. If it's a legal visit, we're placed in a 14-day quarantine with no out-of-cell time, even if your attorney is poked and the tests are negative for cocoa. Visits with friends or family members for unpoked inmates are never allowed. As a result, many people have skipped critical meetings with their counsel and never get an opportunity to see their friends or family. Video visitation, while available to the rest of the jail, is restricted in the J6 pod. Mail is delayed for months, and phone calls are limited to a maximum of pre-approved 12 numbers. If there's anyone else in our extended family or otherwise we'd like to call, we're pretty much out of luck. Religious services protected by the First Amendment are not provided by to J6ers. Neither are prison classes or other activities available to the rest of the jail. An inmate named Ryan Samsel instead attempted to organize his own Bible study inside the pod until he was viciously beaten and left for dead by correctional officers. He suffered a broken eye socket and brain damage as a result of the vicious attack. His orbital bone. That's the guy that you guys might have heard about. He now permanently is blind in one eye. On another occasion, 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢 was confronted by an officer in the middle of the night and his life was threatened once the officer's body cam was disabled. Many, like myself, were afraid they could be the next victim. And last but not least, we experience racism from many guards on a daily basis. Not only white Republicans, being the only white Republicans in the entire jail. The false narrative has been passed around the jail and to correction officers that we are white supremacists, that we are not. The inmate population is predominantly black, so we're at risk of being here because of the false narrative. The guards are most likely liberal migrants from Africa who have been conditioned to hate us and to hate America. J6ers have been mocked, beaten, and ridiculed by guards for singing the national anthem. The corrections officers despise our politics and the love we have for this country. At one point, the officer even yelled "F America" and threatened to lock us down for a week if we attempted to sing the national anthem again. The truth about my story, finally, I feel like should touch briefly on the government and the prosecutor's portrayal of who I am as a person. No, I am not a terrorist, extremist, or any other names I have been called by the government. More than anything, I am a red-blooded patriot and I love this country more than anything. I am being unfairly prosecuted and definitely overcharged. I never assaulted anyone, destroyed property, or stolen anything. I walked through wide open doors to enter the Capitol along with my camera crew, hoping to get a rally on video. I was never armed at any point inside the Capitol. Our goal was to make the documentary and get likes and shares on social media. Yes, I wore, what did he say? Oh, yes, I wore a costume. The prosecutor refers to the parliamentary gear and body armor, but it was for the movie and was nothing of the sort. And yet 9 months later, here I sit with 10 years worth of charges and no hope for the future. The surveillance footage shows how absolutely no signs of assault, and despite attempts by the media companies to get it released to the public, the government has denied it. I think that's because we are fully aware that this footage is questionable at the worst, exonerates me at best. Please don't be fooled by the media. I am loving the peaceful person with no history of violence. The weaponized DOJ and their blatant resentment of my respect for President DJT is putting me in a situation that makes me feel helpless in my situation. How you can help. Despite me and other J6ers experiencing these unthinkable conditions, all of us remain positive and hopeful that in the end, justice will prevail. We maintain a love for this country and the Constitution like no other. The only thing keeping us going in our undying patriotism is camaraderie between one another and our faith in God. Please share this letter. This almost sounds, I'm going to finish the letter, but it almost sounds like a letter from Paul, doesn't it? Like a letter from jail. Like it is, you know, that was a dumb comment, but you know what I mean? Like, just like all of these horrible conditions, and yet he still has hope at the end of the day. Share this letter with everyone you know. Friends and family, senators, representatives, political organizers, civil rights groups, and media outlets. The truth has to get out. So guys, please share this video. You know, I don't always call to action. I always tell you guys to like, share, subscribe, but share this particular video because it contains this letter. Share this letter with everyone you know, friends, family, senators, representatives, political organizers, civil rights group, and media outlets. The truth has to get out, and the jail must pay for what they are doing to this country's citizens. As a result of this unlawful detainment the last 9 months, I have lost everything. The successful business I spent 13 years of my life working on, my apartment in Las Vegas, social media accounts with a lifetime of memories, you name it. The government has essentially canceled me. Not only that, but following the arrest, my best friend of 12 years robbed my apartment, stole my cat, and hacked my personal Instagram with 100,000 plus followers. I wonder who that is. I want to know who that is. You guys know? Do you guys know who that is? I want to know who stole his, because that's real shady. Knowing what one of your best friends are going through, and you're gonna go in and steal everything from him. That's real shady. Since and I often go between feelings of hopelessness and moments of depression, I wonder if I can ever recover from this, but I have to remind myself to never give up. There are major medical complications I now struggle with as the result of the jail's neglect of my health since being here. If there's any way I hope to recover, my only hope is that there are ones who are reading this. I was on top of the world once upon a time, and what life seems to now only like a distant memory. If there's anything you can do to help, I would appreciate anything at all. Inmates are being extorted with lack of nutrition, forcing me to spend most of what's left of commissary, which I can no longer afford. I need desperate help with my legal expenses and help staying alive in here with commissary and all expenses. I still have on the outside as my livelihood, and life has been stripped away from me. Thank you for anything, I think it meant anything you can afford, even if it's a few dollars, it goes a long way here. Sincerely, with love, Nathaniel DeGrave, the letter states. That was one dark story to the next dark story, and I apologize, but these are the things that I get, again, these are things that a lot of people are not talking about. All right. I'm going to close with this story here. This particular NYT opinion essay is calling for the cancellation of what seems to be classic rock. Yeah. Yep. Can we separate art from the artist? So this journalist is basically talking about, the songs, how they've been made through different ages, and how back then, we really didn't think about things in culture or, what she mentions, marginalized groups, the way we think about them today. And so therefore, and I'm just summarizing this article, because I don't really want to give her a lot of thought, but I just wanted to kind of nail down some specific quotes from her article. But she's basically saying that, because they didn't think about society, and I'm talking about, music artists, rock and rollers, they didn't think about society the way that the mainstream culture thinks about it today, that should we have classic rock? Should we even pay attention to these types of songs? This is what she has to say. The past several years have seen a reassessment of our country's many mythologies, from legends of the generals of the Confederacy of the historical glossing over of slave-holding founding fathers. But as we take another look at the sins of our historical figures, we've also had to take a hard look at our more immediate past and present, including the behavior of the creators of pop culture. The reassessment extends now to people who wrote some of the best loved songs, but what to do with art left behind? Can I still love their music? I'm appalled by the various events of the lives of Johnny Cash or Elvis or Jerry Lee Lewis, or by Eric Clapton's racist rants and anti-poke activism. And then she goes through, she continues, of course, there is no easy answer here. Even Miss McLean doesn't think American Pie should be banned from playlists, like some other pieces like classic rock produced by disgraced musicians. Gary Glitter's Rock and Roll Part 2, more popularly known as the Hey Song, for instance, was pulled from airplay after the musician was convicted of possession of child pornography and a series of sex abuse offenses against young girls. Instead, Miss McLean told me that she feels like she would reconsider how we elevate these artists. Indeed, this is where her opinion starts. It would almost be easier if we were just the song. The Rolling Stones quietly removed Brown Sugar from their current U.S. tour list. The track's racist lyrics, which refer to slave ships and rape, have been controversial since the song was a first hit in 1971. The same year as American Pie, and yet the guitarist Keith Richards, when asked about the removal, seemed a little uneasy about the decision. I'm trying to figure out with the Sisters quite where the beef is. Didn't they understand that it was a song about the horrors of slavery? There is a lot of things that I revere about in Brown Sugar and Mr. Richards' guitar riffs, not least. But I can tell you that in 50 years, it was not once occurred to me that this song might even be remotely about the empowerment of Black women. If the Stones don't know why the song has to go, does simply removing it from their tour sheet go far enough? For a lot of baby boomers, it's painful to realize that some of the songs first lodged in our memories in adolescence really need a second look. And it's hard to explain why younger versions of ourselves ever thought they were okay in the first place. I want to live in a world where I can be moved by art and music and literature without having to come up with elaborate apologies for the work or for its creators. Does a world such exist? So she kind of goes into, and again, these are not my words, obviously. This is the words of a New York Times opinion writer. And so, listen, this is how my opinion goes about this whole situation. I'm already annoyed by this article. I see some points to her, what she's trying to say. Like, of course, the majority of society is against racism, right? Racism's not cool and all that. But she's taking like one case, which she does kind of build a good case, for this song. But she's saying, should we, is it a real world for us to live in if there is rock music that is problematic? And does it stop at just pulling the song? So now it's like, we're not strangers to them trying to change history, but now they're trying to change music history based on who wrote the song, and either they who wrote the song if they're problematic, and also whether the lyrics that trigger emotions that may be problematic, I guess. And actually, you know what? Let me bring this up. I want to actually want to see Breitbart's take on this. So Breitbart actually wrote about this. The New York Times opinion section has a run column advocating for classic rock songs like Don McLean's American Pie to be reconsidered and maybe even toppled, like historic Confederate statues, arguing that reevaluating beloved songs will help create a world that is inclusive and more just. Other rock singers ripe for cancellation include Eric Clapton, Jerry Lee Lewis, Johnny Cash, and even Elvis Presley. Johnny Cash, I know he had a past, but didn't he turn his life to, I don't know. Jennifer Finley Boylan, who is a male to female trans person, I don't want to trigger anything. And I'm talking about the codes here on this platform. Laid out the case in the a post titled, "Should classic rock songs be toppled like Confederate statues?" As we take another look at the sins of our historic figures, we also had to take a hard look at our more immediate past and present, including the behavior of creators of pop culture, Boylan wrote. The reassessment extends how the people wrote some of the best loved songs. Let me just get to the point. The columnist also put Eric Clapton on the cancel mob's crosshairs, accusing the rocker of making racist rants and encouraging anti-poke. So anyway, they're just kind of making a point. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. My brain itches now. This is just so much. I know that I laid on a lot of news. I laid on a lot of news. Oh gosh, this was one of the more darker news podcasts, I know. Maybe it's because I'm just today I'm just fatigued, I guess. I need to get a good sleep. I need to sleep earlier, and, I maybe need to get some exercise in the morning. Exercise always makes me feel great. So, and I skipped my workout this morning in efforts to get more sleep. So I'm going to try to take it easy this weekend. I'm definitely still probably going to work, but I'm probably going to, be more eased about it. But anyway, guys, nonetheless, I know these were darker stories today, but they're still stories that you guys must know about. And unfortunately, we are living in a dark world, and some of these things are just kind of getting swept under the rug. And so, always an important thing to bring these to light when we can. So thank you guys so much for tuning into Nightly with Natly. I really love you guys, and thank you so much for believing in me and my work. Thank you for finding these stories also important, because if we're more informed, then we know how to move forward in our personal daily lives. So Guys, I hope you have a restful weekend. And again, if there is some poppin' news, coming about in the weekend, I will say that, I will open the opportunity for me to do a Nightly with Natly weekend edition if there is that news, maybe on Sunday, if it happens, but we'll see. If not, then I'm just going to take a rest, and I'll see you guys on Monday. Nightly with Natly. Share this podcast with somebody. Please, if you are listening on audio form, please give the podcast 5 stars. Please get my ratings and rankings up so that way, you can help your girl climb. And if you're watching this on any video platform, please give this a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Anyway, guys, I love you guys so much. And let me see, before I go, let me just see. Awesome. Okay, well, you guys have a great day, and I will catch you guys in the next stream. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Unravel with Natly Denise. Please give this podcast 5 stars.